This is the After Party, live with Kim McAllister. Pick a couch, grab a drink, and settle into the conversation.
Well, hello, everybody. It is the After Party live on a Waterfall Wednesday, where we take a collective deep breath and relax a little bit. So many archaeology stories that I found. I have so many emails from you guys. I'm so appreciative of all the messages that I get, and I have some of your stories incorporated into today's show, including the waterfalls as well. So thank you to everyone who contributes, whether it's stories or financial contributions. We know the show needs help keeping the lights on and the StreamYard running, so much appreciated. I can see Nullifidian. Hello to you. I like Yvonne settling in for the show. This is very nice. Thank you to Ricky O'Bear. I always love, another thing that I don't say enough is thank you to everyone who goes into the recorded video after the show on YouTube and leaves comments. And Ricky is someone who always pops in and makes a comment. If you make a comment, the more comments made, the more the show is served to people and the more other people might find it. We may add to our community, more views, all of this. So huge thank you to Ricky, to Teacher Lori, to Ranthalling, to everyone who makes the comments. I think there's several others of you that aren't coming to mind right now. I think Jane O. Who else? A lot of people come in and make comments. So thank you for doing that. Yeah, and all the PayPal contributors as well. The PayPal information is in the bottom of the show. I try to say it at least once, but I don't want to harp on it. But it is in the show description and in the About tab, because I know you know this and you will contribute if you want to. And if you don't want to, that's totally cool. You're welcome here and you contribute in other ways, and you lovely people comment and add to the show just with your presence. So I'm grateful for all the ways that you participate in the After Party Live. Yeah, love the thumbs up. Okay, let's jump into these stories that we have, because I have one for you about some biomimicry, looking at things in nature and thinking, how could this benefit us? You see the tumbleweed there on the right and the robot on the left, based on the shape of a tumbleweed, apparently. Now, it looks kind of round to me, but it does have holes and moves maybe more, I don't know, aerodynamically because of the holes fashioned into the material there. The developers of this tumbleweed-inspired robot, which they have named Hermes, say that it's more energy efficient than a solid sphere. It might be the first of a new generation of energy efficient explorers that will be used to roll into disaster zones. It's a hybrid energy efficient rover mechanism for exploration systems. Get it? Hybrid energy efficient rover mechanism for exploration systems. Hermes. The developers have a study they've published in the journal Nature Communications. The creator apparently envisioned this idea while watching humans enjoy wind simply for the thrill of wind. The inspiration is the quote from Sanjay Manoharan, who's a study author and researcher at the École Polytechnique Fédérale de Lausanne. I don't know if I'm saying it right. Said the inspiration struck on a windy winter afternoon along the shores of Lake Neuchâtel in western Switzerland. I was watching kite surfers harness the wind to carve sweeping arcs and achieve effortless lifts. Yet I realized nature had already perfected this art long before us. How do tumbleweeds work? They are apparently very efficient. Despite appearing like a little mass of twigs, these plant remnants harness wind to travel long distances. I would say they're shaped by wind. But the tumbleweeds, they say, are not pointless plant byproducts. They disperse seeds often as they move along their journey, and they're so good at it that ecologists are trying to control them because of their propensity to turn into wildfire hazards. But Manaharan and the research group, they were intrigued by the aerodynamics of tumbleweeds. They say that sticks, the twigs, were so maneuverable despite generating more drag than a solid sphere. So they conducted wind tunnel experiments based on computational fluid dynamics to analyze the dynamics of the movement of the tumbleweed, and they found something unexpected. Previously undocumented structural facet to tumbleweeds. The plant remnants are more porous on the top than they are on the bottom. And the asymmetry changes the wake dynamics and it enhances the pressure drag on the tumbleweed. Once it tipped over, the more dense section of tumbleweed directs air across its exterior, and it works similarly to how a solid sphere rolls, but the porosity in the tumbleweed produces two wakes. This is crazy. In the upright position, the upper half being more porous allowed airflow to pass through freely. In contrast, the lower half was denser and offered greater resistance. And so the engineers decided, let's see what happens if we incorporate this finding into a robotic design printed using 3D laser molding. Yes, let's do it. Nerds unite. The final product involves a lightweight shell with an asymmetrical porosity. The final iteration of this Hermes is far more efficient than either natural tumbleweeds or artificial spheres. Even with a higher drag force, Hermes easily rolled along with only a 3.28 mile per hour breeze. They field tested it and found this robot successfully navigated steep inclines, mapped GPS networks. Hermes moved around this terrain while simultaneously transmitting geotag data at a long range. They say, though, that because the wind isn't a constant, breeze isn't a constant, it lacks a guaranteed fuel source. So at some point when the wind died down, Hermes came to a standstill. That's why they installed a lightweight quadcopter inside the sphere. You could see it in there. Designed to run in 4 modes: reorientation tumbling, directional spinning, gliding, and even a hopping aerial. And they say the end result is a robot that builds from one of nature's most elegant designs. They tested it in mazes and said Hermes not only used 48% less energy than a robot, requiring constant control, it finished the maze 37, I don't know, minutes times faster than its counterpart. Even when it required quick motorized course corrections, the robot still saved 90 to 95% of the energy used in the continually powered control machine. If the wind is blowing and the robot's rolling, it remains perfectly passive, spending zero energy. If it stops for a set period, it attempts a low energy nudge, a quick motor pulse to reposition so that it can catch the wind again. They say flight is always the last resort. So they're going to fine tune it, but the hope is that they'll be able to deploy this into hazardous disaster zones, minefields, windy planets like Mars, even. There could be a lot of applications for Hermes. Kind of exciting. I know I've kind of gone on too long about it, but it's kind of cool. Let's see what you guys think. Thinking about the tumbleweeds. Uh, you should be playing Tumbleweeds by the Sons of Pioneers in the background. I probably get demonetized. Hermes, Hermes like the Birkin. You're laughing at me. Hermes or Hermes like the Greek god. Not Hermes. Hermes? I don't know. I Googled to Nullifidian. Hermes and Mercury are the same god. All right. There you go. I don't know if you saw this. It's a disturbing picture, but I want you to know before I put the picture up that these dolphins, I think they survived. They were rescued by humans. See these dolphins? They ended up in this kind of marshy area in Massachusetts, and they were stranded in this area. Two of them. They were stranded by low tides. And someone saw them, thank goodness, called animal experts from the Warren Department of Natural Resources, and rescuers responded to the Beaver Dam Creek area off of the Wawantic River, where these two dolphins were alive and active on the marsh, but they were partially out of the water, as you can see from the picture, because of the low tide. So the officials call in the International Fund for Animal Welfare's Marine Mammal Stranding Response Team, and they come out to assist. They were able to take these dolphins, transport them to a waiting transport vehicle. They were examined by vets to see if they could be released back into the wild or if they needed to go and get some rehab care and be helped. But it looks like they're going to be okay, thanks to people who came to their rescue and took them for care and eventually to be released back into the sea. So, kind of a sad picture, but I love when humans come to the rescue of creatures like this and help. I have another story. This one is a video story, and it is about this deer who made its way into a Christmas shop, which kind of makes me think of a bull in a china shop. It's kind of prancing around in here. Here's the video. You can see the police and called out to the Christmas shop. Everyone is very concerned. This deer is just kind of trotting through. You can see that here comes the deer right around the corner. And now there it goes. Different shots of it running through the aisles. All these narrow aisles with all these Christmas trees packed in here. Yeah. This happened in Tennessee where this deer was running loose through the Christmas store in Jonesboro, Tennessee. Officers say they were called out to Gabriel's Christmas and More early Friday morning to usher this deer out of the shop. They kind of yucked it up on social media, writing, "Once inside, he took a grand tour, sniffed the ornaments, inspected the garland, side-eyed a nutcracker, galloped around like he was trying to remember where he parked the sleigh." They said he needs to lay off the eggnog. The deer ended up getting stuck while trying to pass through the bottom of a chair, and that is when police were able to catch him, and they put him back outside, let the deer run back up to the front of the store, hoping it would go back out. Um, they said they weren't going to grab it, but they had no choice. So he went into the chair. There you can see here the chair. And they were like, this is what they wrote. They were like, "Gotcha." So they grab him, they take him outside, and off he goes free back into the wilderness once again. But some excitement at the Christmas store. And I don't know how many things were broken. It seemed like it was, able to maneuver through the Christmas decor very well. And now the deer is back out into the world. But good video. Better than the drunken raccoon, maybe. I don't know. I have this story about, let me take this away. I have this story about, speaking of animals, Romans, and it turns out they kept monkeys as pets, and it was all based on status. So if you're rich enough, apparently, to have a monkey, then you would have a monkey, and everyone would know that you are rich because you have a monkey. The keeping of exotic animals, the capture of exotic animals for our amusement, seems to go back very, very far in history. They know this because there were excavations done at the ancient Red Sea port of Berenike in Egypt. And archaeologists say it's rewriting their understanding of exotic pet keeping in the Roman world. And there are surprising connections, they say, between Roman Egypt and the Indian subcontinent. They found dozens of monkey burials at this site, analyzed them, and published findings in a recent study. And researchers say it demonstrates that high ranking Romans once kept imported Indian monkeys as companions as an expression of wealth and status and access to long distance trade networks. There's an animal cemetery at Berenike, and it was discovered outside of this ancient harbor town in 2011. So they did a little digging, literally, and they realized that there were 800 animals buried here. Of them, 35 were monkeys carefully interred, dating to the 1st and 2nd centuries CE. Back then, the port was a hub of Roman trade with the Indian Ocean world. At this time, the port hosted a substantial Roman presence. There were military personnel there that had to secure commercial routes. And the analysis of the animal graves led to the identification of most of these monkeys as a species native to India rather than Africa, going against earlier assumptions that Roman pet monkeys were African, like Barbary macaques. The discoveries now provide the first direct zooarchaeological evidence that live non-human primates were transported from India to Roman Egypt. And that is something they didn't know before. The burials themselves are suggestive that these animals had a special place in society. 40% of the monkey graves had objects placed deliberately alongside the remains, different than cats and dogs at the same cemetery. The cats and dogs didn't get the grave goods. The items found with the monkeys included collars used for restraint, food offerings, striking shells valued for their iridescence. In several cases, monkeys were buried with other animals like a kitten or a piglet, so they had their own companion animals to be buried with. So there was a lot of symbolism attached to them. And that type of treatment is suggestive of ownership by elite individuals, maybe Roman officers stationed at the port. Maybe the exotic pets were a social marker, like keeping monkeys from across the sea showed that you were wealthy and had big connections. Speaking of archaeology stories, I love a good coin story too. And this is a really good one. This story is about 40,000 Roman era coins that were found in this French village. The town was important to a Celtic tribe before it was conquered by Julius Caesar. And wait till I show you the pictures of all of these Roman coins in a pot. Now, they probably weren't all in this pot, not all 40,000 of them. Check it out. Imagine you're digging and you find this giant pot full of dough. Yeah. Again, this is in a French village. 40,000 Roman era coins that were found during a dig. They were found in 3 ceramic storage vessels that have been buried between 1700 and 1800 years ago. The team from the National Institute for Preventive Archaeological Research, I don't know, they were digging in the village of Senon in northeastern France, about 60 miles from the border with Luxembourg. Senon was one of the main cities of the Medio Matrici tribe. It was a Celtic tribe that lived in and around northern France during the Gallic Wars when Julius Caesar conquered parts of present day France, Belgium, and Switzerland between 57 and 50 BCE. They found these coins buried in three large ceramic coin jugs called amphorae. The archaeologists think thousands of coins uncovered date from the last quarter of the 3rd century. They still don't know exactly what the dates are here. The first hoard held about 83 pounds of coins, 23 to 24,000 coins in one pot. The second jug weighed in at 110 pounds. The third jug contained only 3 coins. Aw, that's all right. They said, contrary to what people might think, it's not certain that these were treasures hidden away during a period of insecurity. Instead, the jugs might be a snapshot of the way they managed money, a financial system that was potentially planned for medium to long term savings within a household, so deposits and withdrawals could be made at various times. In two cases, so it's like an old bank. In two cases, the presence of a few coins found stuck to the outer face of the vessel indicates they were placed there after the vessel had been buried, before the pit was filled with sediment. Two of the deposits were found in what would have been a living room, indicating they would have been easily accessible to the owner. Then, about the beginning of the 4th century, a large fire destroyed this original settlement. The area was reestablished before a second fire. Now, despite both of these fires, the older age of the coins offers evidence that a clustered settlement already existed before the Roman conquest of this area. They're still looking at all different hypotheses here, but they say there's a link. They think it's possible there's a link between 3 subcontemporary coin hoards, all buried, and the known military occupation at Senon, attested by fortification dating from the same time period and located only about 492 feet from the excavated area. You never know imagine all the people that walked right over that land not knowing what's under there. Speaking of coins, I have this coin story where we always talk about the finding of the coins, but we don't necessarily talk about the what happens in the case of when you go to sell them. So this is an Elizabethan era gold coin that sold for a pretty penny. They're calling it a record-breaking price. I have a picture that I want to show you of these coins. Yeah, cool golden coins. I would be excited if I was doing a little digging and found these. Take a look at this. This is what happens when you find a coin, take it to auction, and you get a lot of cash. So the coins were minted between 1584 and 1586. And you can see the ship on the one on the left. They're meant to celebrate England's naval superiority of the time. They were minted during the reign of Elizabeth I from 1558 to 1603. It's called the Gold Ship Royale of 15 shillings, sold at Heritage Auctions last month for $372,000, setting a world record for the sale of an Elizabeth Ship Royale sold at auction. The Royale, it's RYAL, was a gold coin typically from Scotland, not minted in the United Kingdom at that time. One Royale was generally equivalent to 60 shillings, and a former silver coin equal to 30 shillings. One of the most well-known Royales in coin history is the Rose Royale, struck originally during the reign of King James I of England, the Stuart monarch who followed Elizabeth for the First's reign. The Tower Mint describes the Rose Royale as a bold proclamation of power, prestige, and divine right. So, they say only a few of these with a ship were minted between 1584 and 1586. They were typically low grade. They think that this Royale was made in response to gold that was captured from the Spanish galleons during English privateers, Sir Francis Drake's days. The designs and the symbols on the coin include a likeness of Elizabeth I on a ship wearing a ruff and a gown holding a scepter and an orb. The image of the monarch believed to represent England's dominance of the seas at the beginning of American colonization and the eventual defeat of the Spanish Armada in 1588. On the back side, it's got a cross with floral designs at the center and a rose on a radiant sun and crowned lions. There's an inscription which translate to, "But Jesus passing through the midst of them went his way," what it says on the coin. So this is being called an incredible coin from an incredible collection, and it brought in a pretty big result as well. It's one of the most coveted, early pursued pieces among British coin collectors, and it's among the last coins struck in this medieval design style. Incredibly rare. Incredibly rare indeed. $372,000. All right, enough of me and my archaeology, or is it? This was a bold choice, I'll say this. If you were going to rob someone, I mean, perhaps this would be the weapon you would choose if you needed a weapon. Is this I don't know, to find out if it still works. I would have questions of misfiring, all kinds of things. This old gun was used in a robbery, according to police. Here's a picture of it. I mean, look at that thing. You wonder what's going to happen. It's a 19th century pistol that was used in the robbery of a liquor store in Tulsa, Oklahoma. The firearms expert says this pistol is something a bit different. Yeah. The weapon of choice by this 24-year-old suspect who was arrested last week by Tulsa police is described as an old-timey musket. Police apprehended and charged the suspect and then gave some details about the weapon used. They said, for those who are curious, the firearm is likely from the mid-1800s. It's a single-shot percussion derringer, also called the muff pistol or pocket pistol. According to firearms historian Michael Helms, he tells Popular Science, law enforcement's initial assessment is slightly off target because of the spelling of derringer, which refers to a gun made by Henry Derringer, who was a Philadelphia gunmaker that developed a reputation for his compact percussion pistols. The name came into widespread when one of his pistols was used to assassinate Abraham Lincoln. And over time, Derringer, the name, became genericized referring to small percussion pistols. He said it's hard to really analyze this historical firearm just from a picture, but he said he doesn't see evidence that it's any kind of replica, that police were correct in calling it a percussion pistol. These types of guns are loaded from the muzzle with ball and powder and primed using a percussion cap. He did say this pistol is something a bit different and somewhat more rare. It's an underhammer pistol. Conventional mid-19th century weapons usually featured hammers located either on the top or the side of the gun. The underhammers have the hammer positioned underneath the gun barrel. So he said in this case, the hammer is attached to the forward trigger, which was used to cock the gun. The trigger behind it would have released the hammer and fired the gun. So it's interesting. They said that it could have been produced by Ethan Allen, not the furniture maker. Yeah. A prominent 18th century arms maker who patented numerous single and multi-shot pistols. Uh, I don't know. Other gun experts say it looks like a Bacon and Company underhammer pistol. But until they see it in person, the gun experts say it's hard to tell. But whatever it is, it's an interesting antique pistol and shocking that someone would actually use it to rob a liquor store in 2025. It takes all kinds. All right. I have this story about taking a shower and washing up. And the headline of the story, the headline reads, "The age-old grandmother rule of washing is backed by science." You know how grandmas will tell you, you need to wash behind your ears and you need to wash between your toes. You need to get all those places that people normally forget. You need to do a complete and thorough washing. Well, scientists did a little looking and they say, you know what? Grandma was right. You need to wash in those places that you wouldn't think. And the reason they think this is because they did some looking at microbiomes in key areas that people tend to miss washing. The research done by folks from George Washington University Computational Biology Institute, and they were looking at the skin microbiome. That's a community of microorganisms living on our skin. Healthy people have all of these microbiomes living on our skin, right? The little creatures crawling around that we can't see. And they particularly focused on skin areas like between the arms and the neglected areas of our navel, washing your belly button, behind your ears. They said they looked at 129 students collecting samples from their calves, their forearms, behind their ears, between their toes, and in their belly buttons. And the students were taught to sequence the DNA in these skin samples, comparing the oily, neglected areas to the samples taken from dry, cleaner areas. And sure enough, Grandma's right. The areas that were more regularly cleaned, had a much more diverse microbiome containing potentially healthier collections of microbes than the areas that were neglected. They said the dry skin regions, the forearms and the calves, were more even, richer, and functionally distinct than sebaceous behind the ears and moist belly button and between the toes regions. There were no significant differences found across genders, ages, and ethnicities. They said with skin regions, bacterial alpha and beta diversity also varied significantly for some of the years compared, suggesting that skin bacterial stability may be region and subject dependent as well. The investigation notes that your skin microbiome is made up of these microbes that are helpful and harmful to you. And when the balance shifts toward harmful, it can result in diseases like eczema, acne, etc. The relationship between the microbiome health and human health is an area they say that's still in need of investigation. So the study serves as a reference point for how to achieve healthy microbiomes in adults. So when you take your next shower, consider getting in between the toes, getting in the belly button, getting behind the ears. You know, it's not just about a little spritzel with the armpits and the nether regions, right? You got to clean it all. Get in there with soap or whatever it is. I don't know. Yikes. All right, I have one more archaeology story before we get to a more fun story, and then we'll take a little look at some waterfalls. Have you heard of the cannabis degree? Because, or decree rather, I had not heard of it. Cannabis decree. You look at this picture and you think, not the picture of the lady in the bathtub, this one, but I think about all the copies of this that were made and all the work that went into it. Can you see that picture okay? I don't know if I could try to add it a different way and blow it up, but I don't know if you can see all the different writing on that tablet, stone tablet. I mean, it goes on and on and on and on, like a speech from you know who. This was unearthed in Egypt after 150 years. Okay, I'm going to try to show it a different way because I want to blow this up so you can see the actual writing. This is crazy. I can't even imagine. I mean, maybe somebody got really good at it, but the time this must have taken, and they had to do more than one copy. The reason I bring it up is because, let's see if I can take this one away. Okay. So here's what it looks like. Can you see all the little intricate writing there and the carved pictures? And look, it goes on and it goes on. And the writing gets bigger and the writing gets smaller and smaller. Look at all of that. That's just crazy, right? Yeah, I know. So they found a full copy. They didn't have a full copy. Now they have a full copy. Let me take the video away. There it is. Okay. So now they have this full copy of this cannabis degree. This decree was a uh, it was a note sent basically from a leader praising this leader's wife and daughter, celebrating their political achievements and their religious activities. So all of this carved multiple times on these stone tablets. It's a giant brag tablet is how I look at it. The cannabis degree, originally proclaimed by King Ptolemy III Euergetes at a gathering of high priests in the ancient city of Canopus, which is east of modern-day Alexandria, was published to honor the king, his wife Bernice II, and their daughter to celebrate their political achievements, their religious activities, and they sent copies of this decree on tablets to significant temples all over Egypt. Now, before this, archaeologists had only found 6 full or partial copies from several sites. Unlike the earlier in hieroglyphic, Demotic, and Greek scripts, the new stela is inscribed entirely in hieroglyphs, which gives scholars a unique opportunity to study the Ptolemaic language, the religious practices of that time, and the administration from a purely Egyptian perspective. So the one they just found, carved from sandstone, stands about 127 and a half centimeters high, 83 centimeters wide, 48 centimeters thick. It has this rounded top with a winged solar disk and 2 royal cobras bearing the white and red crowns of Upper and Lower Egypt. It has an inscription that translates as to "He who gives life." And then there are 30 lines of hieroglyphic text detailing the royal edict or the royal brags. They call it and invaluable source material for historians and linguists. Religious policy. It documents royal donations to temples, tax remissions in times of low Nile inundations, the enforcement of a leap year system, inserting an additional day into the calendar every 4 years to align their calendar with religious observances. And it also establishes a new priestly title in honor of the royal family. It prescribes religious festivals and defies the king and queen and their daughter, or deifies rather. So, kind of interesting, I think, how much trouble they went to for all of that. I have this story about cookies. This is another one of these wacky world record stories, but this is one I think I can get behind. Members of this Facebook group in Pittsburgh organized a world record attempt that involved the baking of 83,427 cookies for a massive cookie exchange. This was organized by the Wedding Cookie Table Community Facebook page. They brought together 583 bakers in 67 different teams from 14 states and New Zealand, and they worked together to beat the previous record and baked a heck of a lot of holiday cookies, took the world record, which I'm sure is very fun for bakers to have a Christmas cookie record. And I don't have any pictures of the event, but I can give you a picture of Christmas cookies to make you hungry right around lunchtime. Here you go. There's some cookies for you. The attempt included displaying cookies on team tables at the local fairgrounds. The display cookies numbered more than 83,000. The exchange involved 73,000. So not all the cookies were apparently given. Maybe some were eaten at the event. All of the cookies were Christmas themed. Everything from decorated snowballs, Santa Claus, reindeer. The evidence from the attempt is now being submitted to the Guinness World Records in hopes of originating the category of the largest Christmas cookie exchange. So, little happy holiday story to get you in the holiday spirit. I have this waterfall story, and I think some of these we may have seen before, but I think it's okay because the pictures are different. And this was submitted by Phineas. So I want to thank Phineas for this great waterfall story. And let me share the screen with you. This is 13 waterfalls you could see in one weekend, and it's in California. It's in a waterfall loop. So here's what the loop looks like. Here's Redding down here at the bottom. You go up Redding, up to Castle Crags State Park, Fairy Falls, Lower Falls, McCloud River, out to Burney Falls, to Burney, to Podum Falls, and back to Redding again. So huge, huge loop. But let's take a look at some of these waterfalls. That's fun. That is a natural water slide waterfall. I don't think we've seen this one before. At least we haven't seen people sliding down on it. This is called the Little Backbone Creek Natural Water Slide. It is on the McCloud arm of Shasta Lake, and it's a top destination for people looking for an adventure. It's a smooth waterfall, the ultimate natural water park. You can hike or use a kayak to access this water slide. It's a 20-minute hike up to the water slide. They say bring a waterproof camera. That's not a bad idea. And you can spend an entire summer day enjoying plunges into the creek below this slide. See if I can't make that a little bit bigger. It looks fun. There they are. There they are. I mean, perhaps comes with some danger, but it's got to live a little. Look at this one. This is so beautiful. See if I can back out a little bit and show you the height of this incredible waterfall. This one is Burstarcy Falls. It is in the heart of Castle Crags Wilderness, located right off of the Pacific Crest Trail. It actually is consisting of two different waterfalls. They say a lot of people looking for these falls stop at the lower Burstarcy waterfalls thinking that they've made it. The lower falls is a 25-foot waterfall with a small pool at the bottom to take a dip. But the real Burstarcy Falls is up the trail a ways, and it's a 50-foot tall waterfall with small cascades below. You can see the cascades on the steps, the stone steps below. What looks like stone steps to me. Beautiful. I'm going to scroll down a little bit so you can see more of this picture. I'll scroll out a little bit, make it a little smaller. Pretty beautiful. Don't those look like stone steps? I think they're boulders, but the way they're naturally arranged, that's incredible. What a bummer to miss out on that one, thinking you've made it to the lower one. The next one on the list is called Root Creek Falls. See, oh, there it is right there. It's okay. I'm not super impressed. It's all right. It's a multi-tiered waterfall in the Castle Crags State Park just below Castle Dome. It it's a bit of a hike. You can take different routes to get here, and you've got to pay the $10 entrance fee. But there's a small collection of trails that lead toward a vista point for Root Creek Falls, and they all lead to the creek or the vista point. And then you can look up and see the steep falls with the backdrop of the wild, stark crags and the white clouds on such a day above. They say it's a perfectly vertical line of sight up the canyon and up the falls. I can imagine that would be pretty impressive. Let me back up a little bit and show you that you get two waterfalls coming all the way down. So that's pretty impressive. Here's Hedge Creek Falls. I love a waterfall that you can get behind. Look at that waterfall in opposition to the size of the person standing next. This is a Hedge Creek Falls in front of the passage to a 12-foot high cave. It's a narrow waterfall, but it doesn't cover up the fact that there's a cave behind it. They say it's well worth the drive to Dunsmuir, California, where they have the trains. Along with the waterfall, you can take in incredible views of the Shasta River, or rather the Sacramento River and Mount Shasta from the Hedge Creek Falls Trail. There's a bunch of switchbacks to hike down to this. And at one point, you start hearing flowing and falling water. And before you know it, you're at Hedge Creek Falls. The trail continues behind the waterfall, giving you a very intimate feel. Some days, they say you can spot rock climbers trying to ascend the igneous rock wall that reaches some 35 feet to the source of the cascade. That's pretty special. The next one is called Mossbrae Falls. And this looks like something out of a tropical wonderland. Look at that. That's Mossbrae. Does that even look real? It is, and it's in California. They say it's one of the most popular waterfalls in the Mount Shasta Dunsmuir area because of its incredibly unique features. Not your typical waterfall. It seems the rock and moss are continually bleeding fresh mountain water. They say Mossbrae is actually a series of springs that burst from the cliffs above the Sacramento River and then rain down into the water. Mossbury Falls composed of two primary clusters of spring-fed waterfalls which reach about 50 feet high and 150 feet wide. Then the presence of the river beneath the falls enhances the scene and makes for one of the prettiest sights in the Mount Shasta area. Yes, it does. And we've never been here before. Mossbury, look at you. Oh, beautiful. The next one is called Fairy Falls. This is so, so pretty. Get this one. Here's Fairy Falls. I'm going to back out a little bit so you can kind of get the full picture of it. Just incredible. Fairy Falls. On the Nay Springs Canyon Trail near Siskiyou Lake in Mount Shasta City. It's an easy hike through the 19th century ruins of Nay Springs Resort with a waterfall payoff. This, by the way, all taken from activenorcal.com. And Phineas sends me the article 13 Waterfalls in One Weekend along the waterfall loop. The trail is the about 1.2 miles at low elevation. They say it's an easy hike that can be done at any time of year. A little over 3/4 of the way up the trail, you find the old ruins of the Nay Springs Resort, which was a popular tourist destination in the 1800s. And then about a quarter of a mile down the trail, you see Fairy Falls. Depending on the flow of water at the time of year, you'll find either a 40-foot tall waterfall with a great vantage point, or maybe something a little less impressive. But sure is beautiful if this picture is to be believed. The next one is Lower McCloud Falls. That's pretty magical as well. Look at that. Gorgeous. This is the smallest of the 3 tiers of McCloud Falls, but with the easiest access and the most visible as well. It has multiple mid-tier platforms for people to jump into the water when the temperature is a little better. Sometimes it's really cold. It's a parking lot right next to these waterfalls, so easy to access. It's also the most crowded of the 3 waterfalls. The more you walk up the trail to the higher falls, the less of a crowd you'll see. So let's go to the middle. This is the lower, and here you have Middle McCloud. Well, fewer people up here. It is the largest, most popular of the 3 McCloud waterfalls, with a large pool below creating a fantastic swimming hole. The size and symmetry of the waterfall make it a great location for photographers as well. Pretty packed during the summer, but you can go there year round. Just got to be careful. And finally, here's the Upper McCloud Falls. What a view. Look at that. Through the trees. I'll zoom in a little bit. Yeah, that's really cool. So this is Upper McCloud. It's a big, beautiful waterfall, but again, not as popular as Middle McCloud. It can be difficult to get into the canyon and get down to the water here, but there are still beautiful views at the top of the trail. Really, really gorgeous. The next one is Burney Falls. We may have been here before, but it's okay because look at this. I mean, wow. That's a waterfall right there. Incredible. The Burney Falls, people jump off here. It's called illegal and dangerous. President Theodore Roosevelt called it the 8th wonder of the world. It is north of Redding between Lassen Peak and Mount Shasta in what's called lava country. It's a 129-foot tall waterfall cascading from Burney Creek down into Lake Britain. These falls are a sacred place for the Pitt River Indian tribe. They hold ceremonial rituals here. They have done so for thousands of years. The falls, year round, are formed by melting snow from Burney Mountain, traveling through underground streams before hitting solid rock and flowing back to the surface. Every day at Burney Falls, more than 100 million gallons of water plunge over the falls. When you go from that to the smallest waterfall on the loop, it's a little less impressive. So somebody had to fall Burney Creek Falls, and it turns out it's Montgomery Creek Falls. He's just a little one. He's a little guy, but still kind of cool. The smallest waterfall on the waterfall loop, but it's located right off of a bridge so you can see it from Montgomery Creek Road. It has multiple tiers. The biggest tier is at the bottom, and it's one of the two most beautiful waterfalls rounding out the loop. We got a couple more. Hatchet Creek Falls. This looks like a nice summer spot as well. Check this one out. You can see all the people waiting to jump off the ledge there. This is Hatchet Creek, and it's also called Lion's Slide Falls, Hatchet Falls or Lion's Slide. Got a swimming hole here. One of the most recognizable, popular swimming holes in Northern California. Locals love it here. There's this giant fallen tree laying right at the middle of the falls, and that creates a makeshift stairway for climbers or swimmers to climb back up and jump back into the water. There's a shallow area formed by a dam here, and it's easily accessible as well, which makes it pretty popular with people. The next one is called Podum Falls, and it's pretty impressive. Look at that. I bet you could get behind this one as well and check it out from the other side. You get wet doing it though. This is near Montgomery Creek off of Highway 299. Podum Falls is a 70-foot tall waterfall on the Pitt River arm of Shasta Lake. It is a popular weekend swim spot as well. About a quarter of a mile hike to the Podum Falls watering hole. So it's a good destination for families. It's also a romantic date spot. Has a large pool perfect for swimming and lounging in. In Latin, podum means to drink, and they say you might be compelled to drink the water, but don't do it. No. And there you go. That is the 13 waterfalls in one weekend around Northern California's world-famous waterfall loop. Huge thank you to Phineas for bringing us those amazing waterfalls today. I loved it. Loved seeing all of them. And I don't think I ever brought up the original picture. I just kind of jumped right in. But that is Waterfall Wednesday. All right. Thank you so much, you guys. I see the rocks are crying. Yeah. Thank you so much for being here and for hanging out with me today. I do want to thank everyone by name who has contributed recently via PayPal, because as you know, the show does not succeed and thrive without that, because I can't afford all the things to pay for all the platforms and everything else. So thank you for helping with that. And that includes Wes, who pops in with 5 today, Deidre L, Delette Z, Kathy O, Susan S. Thank you guys so much for contributing via PayPal. Really, really appreciate it. And thank you to Phineas for the great Waterfall Wednesday story. And thank you guys all for being here and participating in the chat. I love it. Tomorrow on the Mark Thompson Show, we've got David Katz coming in. So we'll be talking law, and Mo Kelly will be back. So it's going to be a great show. And then please don't forget that it's Trivia Thursday tomorrow here on the After Party. And then at 5 p.m., the Nikki Maduro Show goes live on YouTube, 5 p.m. Pacific. Cocktails, mocktails, politics, and Nikki and I will talk the stories of the day, of the last week, actually. So I hope to see you there. If you want to set a reminder, it's a great moment to do so. But until we meet again, make it a great rest of your Wednesday. Bye, everybody.
The After Party Live would like to thank the following contributors and viewers like you.
It's all right, Heather. Somebody has to make the coins.